Reproduction is a chaotic biological process, but to understand how societies actually survive, we have to look past the biology. In demographics, we measure fertility. This is the exact number of live births occurring within a specific population over a defined period. Every shift in a human population is dictated by three mechanics: fertility, mortality, and migration. Demographers isolate the fertility variable to build precise indicators. This allows them to track exactly how populations expand or contract over time. While reproduction is a personal event, aggregate fertility is a mathematical lever. It dictates a society's future infrastructure, labor force, and economic survival. Globally, the statistical rate of childbearing is dropping. As nations develop economically, birth rates fall. This chart tracks the average number of children per woman in South Africa. It shows exactly how macro-societal shifts manipulate population engines. Look at the 1980s. The average South African woman was having more than 4 children. Today, that average has collapsed to between 2.2 and 2.4 children per woman. How does a nation's fertility rate get cut in half in less than 50 years? This curve represents the mathematical aggregation of social, economic, and cultural transformations. Fertility does not drop on its own. It is forced down by a set of interacting factors we call the determinants of fertility. The most powerful statistical suppressor of high birth rates is female education. When women attain higher levels of education, they naturally delay childbearing. They also gain critical awareness of their reproductive choices. The second major socioeconomic lever is household income. You might expect wealthier families to have more children, but the opposite is true. As income rises, the escalating costs of modern childrearing lead families to intentionally choose smaller sizes. This ties directly into female employment. When women participate in the wage labor force, childbirth is predictably delayed. Provide women with educational and economic agency, and the statistical probability of large families drops immediately. Moving entire populations from rural agriculture to dense urban centers completely rewires the underlying economic logic of reproduction. Cities present a hostile economic environment for large families. The punishing costs of urban housing, food, and education make extra children a severe financial liability. Compare that to a traditional rural framework. Here, space is abundant, and multiple children provide crucial agricultural labor. In these rural systems, large families guarantee economic security and elevate social status. They act as a localized safety net. Migrate that same family into a city, and lifestyle changes are forced upon them. Marriage is delayed, and the perception of the ideal family size shrinks. Packing a population into a dense urban environment inherently weaponizes the cost of living against high birth rates. Economic pressure alone isn't always enough. It often has to fight against deeply entrenched cultural expectations regarding gender roles. Practices like early marriage and the traditional expectation of continuing the family lineage actively resist the downward pressure of urbanization. To break that stalemate, a technological catalyst is required: access to contraception. The expansion of reproductive health services in South Africa provided the physical mechanism for women to align their biology with their new economic realities. But there is a critical vulnerability in this system. Access is not uniform, and it remains severely limited in under-resourced areas. The societal desire for a smaller family is statistically useless without the localized medical infrastructure to enforce it. That celebrated national average of 2.3 children per woman masks severe localized inequalities. The 2023 data from Statistics South Africa reveals persistent high fertility in specific geographic pockets. In the Eastern Cape, dispersed rural environments fiercely resist the national downward trend, isolated from urban medical and educational hubs. The most critical demographic concern in this region is the high rate of teenage fertility, births among young women aged 15 to 19. The effects compound quickly. Teenage births cause an immediate interruption of education, decimation of employment opportunities, and guarantee a high likelihood of multi-generational poverty. This anomaly ties directly back to our determinants. It is the explicit result of uneven access to both quality education and modern contraception. Macro-level progress is an illusion if systemic failures in specific provinces continue to trap young populations in cycles of high fertility poverty. Zooming out from the determinants, A nation's fertility patterns carry immense macroscopic consequences. This is an age structure model. Demographers use these population pyramids to predict a society's future stability based on its birth rates. On the left is the high fertility model. Rapid population growth creates a massive, swelling youth demographic at the bottom. This wide base places high demand on public infrastructure, requiring the rapid expansion of schools, pediatric healthcare, and eventually the labor market. On the right is the low fertility model. Declining births create a shrinking base and an expanding elderly population at the top. This model carries its own severe economic trap. You get an aging population that drains social services, funded by an ever-shrinking labor supply. A country's fertility rate today mathematically dictates the exact infrastructural crises it will face 50 years from now. It all comes down to dependency ratios, the delicate mathematical balance between the working-age population and those they must support. Stabilizing this ratio is a primary goal of development planning, as it ensures long-term economic survival by balancing the needs of the young and elderly with the productivity of the workforce. South African data illustrates how environmental factors, social, economic, and cultural, actively modulate biological reproductive capacity. Population dynamics are entirely shaped by interacting social, economic, cultural, and policy environments. You cannot legislate population size. To alter a nation's demographic destiny, you must engineer the foundational determinants of education, urbanization, and access.